John GAETA. C'est à la fois un très grand nom du cinéma, et puis il a lancé une nouvelle destination, une nouvelle plateforme pour l'innovation qui s'appelle escape.ai. C'est un passionné de création, c'est un passionné de contenu. Et en ayant lancé cette nouvelle destination, il adresse finalement un message. Il l'adresse au néo-cinéma. Cette plateforme est destinée aux créateurs et à tous les nouveaux publics. On voit bien que c'est pas simplement des effets spéciaux, c'est aussi des nouvelles narrations. Et puis c'est aussi une manière de considérer que les créateurs vont bénéficier de cette innovation IA.
One lesson is, look, I have a lot of friends from the old days of Matrix that went from movies to AAA gaming. They essentially, a lot of colleagues that kind of brought photorealism in AAA games and brought, where, you know, across the years started to bring multiplayer, like massive scale multiplayer. A number of colleagues that went into companies like Epic Games, for example. In Epic Games, there's a lot of ex-Matrix people that run different things in there and try experiments, like in Fortnite, having those concerts with millions of people attending.
During the pandemic.
Yeah, a lot of my friends and colleagues are the ones that kind of started that event stuff. And yeah, it's a new day, right? Like, so this generation is this coming generation, really Gen Z, they're very comfortable in games, in game environments. They're socializing. As you know, kids are hanging out with their friends or doing homework inside of Fortnite spaces, of all things, and Minecraft. All these things is like indicative of the new generation of entertainment consumers. And so that is what we have been thinking about, is like, okay, you're comfortable in 3D. You like to socialize in 3D. Maybe you're not gaming. Maybe you're just kind of like hanging out and socializing or watching movies. And we will have also some interactive stuff on Escape as well. But we need to get past this kind of 20th century thinking where like films happen over here and games happen over there. And you got to make this long, convoluted journey across the internet to get from one silo to the other. And it's a very superficial division of these silos. It's mostly corporately driven, right? Division. And so, if you're making a new platform, then you don't have those kinds of, legacy constraints that you keep in place. So you just start over. And like, so for us, it's like, yeah, it's a really incredible, as simple as it is. I mean, I'm sure a lot of your audience has tried metaversy things.
Yes, we did.
But it's still meaningful to actually meet, even if you're meeting a person and they happen to have an avatar skin and you're there talking to them, it's still meaningful. It's a version of socializing, and you can build relationships. So it's in there as a default to Escape. If you like that, you can do that.
But then you have, let's say, the very beginning when we go to Neo Cinema. Then we can have a navigation, vertical one, and there's really the feeling of a deep dive. I mean, because then you can enter after the spotlight. This brilliant thing about events, festivals, because they need the distribution and they need everybody, and it's fantastic to see who won and to discover their content, their universe. It's a brilliant idea to play with the festivals.
It's like it's a network unto itself, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Like there's a revolution in festivals happening, actually,
absolutely,
right, around the world. It's like,
absolutely.
When was the last time that happened? Can't even think of it.
No, there are festivals everywhere. For example, I'm following an African festival. People that are in Senegal. I mean, it's just unbelievable. They have their own stories to tell.
Yeah,
you have the language barrier, but as you mentioned, it will not last. So the ticker is great also to discover different genres, because I really discovered a lot of great animations. The series also was very good, kind of a revelation to me. Original fiction, then you deep diving, and then it looks a bit like Netflix, because it's
better.
the way people are navigating.
It looks better than Netflix.
It looks better than Netflix.
I think it does. I think it works. I think it actually works better. But yeah, I mean, like this is for. I mean, we're
because it's curated by humans. It's less algorithmic. I mean, probably.
Yes, it's 100%. It's curated by humans. And some humans have to stay in the loop. Humans have to be the authors of these things. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah. We're also creators ourselves, so we love the artistry, and we love cinema posters.
Art Basel in the middle of this is just fantastic because you see creations.
Exactly.
Music video too, things that we can see on traditional platform, but you don't really notice. And then you have this considering music video as a creation. What is neo-absurdism? I thought it was a French existentialist something.
We tweaked that name. I mean, like, so there's this whole area that Gen AI is super fun with that has to do with the weirdness, though, that AI can produce. Some people call it weird core, but we have a colleague on here on Escape named David Slade. He's like a famous director. He directed a bunch of the Black Mirror episodes. He's the Bandersnatch creator, and he loves, because he's a fine artist from before his filmmaking days. He used to do music videos, so he's a real artist. And he's like, his exploration in AI is again on the abstract. I mean, he likes it as a sort of art form. So he's like, I would like it to be called this, neo-absurdism. And we're like, okay, David, if that's what you like, let's do this. And so that's what that's about. It's the weird stuff.
Animation. Family is brilliant too, because we expect this from Disney or from whoever is on the business side. And then you realize that there's a great potential and a great creativity, probably things you will not see on a family destination.
Yes.
Some semblance who reminds us of other series, fan fiction.
It's fan fiction, so, yeah.
Based in reality is...
loosely based in reality.
Loosely.
So if you made a documentary, even if you used AI to do it, right, that would be like a place you would go.
Okay, it's based on reality. Okay.
So these are all the channels of the creators. You can go now to any one of these people, and they will have a whole portfolio of fantastic stuff. I mean, some people have more than others. This person has one film. You went to Dave Clark, it's full. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I went to Dave Clark first. Afrofucha is very funny too. I love that one too.
Yeah, so like she's doing it. Yeah, she's so and on the channels they can really design these things. They can make them very brand slick, and they can put in premiere stuff and things they want to emphasize. But what I expect people to do is to just kind of like follow the creators they wind up loving the most, or the series. Really, at this point, it's always about like the series, right? Like what is it that I'm following, just like it is in traditional. So but these channels are spectacular.
Absolutely.
They're all really cool. These people are amazing. We're so lucky, I have to say. I mean, like at a certain point, really, you can do anything you want to try to make a platform take off, but it's the decision of the creators themselves. If they see the value enough to put this kind of, look at all the effort that this person made to populate their channel, present it nicely. And now the creators are, they talk about when they put new things on Escape, right? Now they're helping themselves. They're helping the platform by promoting, I guess, or at least announcing, right?
Yeah. This is exactly what we have seen, and this is how you discover people and you discover their creations. They have other activities, and then they are so proud. Actually, there's a pride of sharing what you've done and what you've done during your weekends, and then you share that. somewhere what you mentioned and what I loved about your path is that to me it's like virtual cinematography. It's something you were mentioning at the very beginning. I want to go back to this Oscar you won because not only Matrix was a generational experience, but it's also visionary. And many things that happen in the Matrix are actually things we are sometimes experiencing. So you have been very lucky. I mean, you work probably very hard for the Wachowski. And what I loved really, it's a team effort, and you can see it. And if we look at the Oscar,
oh God, you're not going to do this.
yeah, because the team, we
John GAETA, Yannick Searles, Steve Courtley, and John Thumb for The Matrix.
This is the first Oscar nomination for John GAETA, Yannick Searles, Steve Courtley, and John Thumb.
I think it's a great moment for cinema, for VFX. What I loved about this image is the teamwork.
Yes. Well, that's filmmaking, isn't it? Well, that's also a good thing to point at in this new day, isn't it? Right? Like, okay, there are things that are beloved about the making of movies that are just phenomenal experiences as for humans to go through. That collaboration. The films can also kill you, because they're so damn hard to make. Whether it's a big giant movie or an independent, they're equally hard, right? Independent movies are like incredible puzzles, you know what I mean, to just figure out strategically how to get through, to get the most. And then big films are also complex, and can be very stressful to make, but joyful. But yeah, it is something that one could maybe, point at as a value to the old way of making movies. But the problem with the business of making movies is that it's becoming, again, financially very difficult to do. It's always been hard to raise enough money, and it's gotten, for one reason or another, even more difficult, and causing a systemic breakdown across the entertainment sector, in my opinion, all sorts of things. And so, yeah, and we're now like in this, what I consider like kind of highly risk averse phase, right, of entertainment, which is really constraining and restricting new filmmakers in every possible way. Which is why, AI is interesting, or this emergent tech is interesting, because you can suddenly maybe see. Now, it won't necessarily. It's not the same as going out and photographing, right?
I want to go back on this because we found this great subject on how you manage the famous team boat, and we can see physically, it's unbelievable, especially for this new generation, to imagine the hard work it was to have, 400 cameras, this cyclo, this green screen. It's just hard work, and teamwork. When you think about the kids who are playing with AI, they just don't imagine how costly, how difficult, how long this process was.
Yeah, I mean, this was all, a lot of invention. I mean, the basic thing to sort of take away from the first Matrix, the three films, is that there's something to this, right? Like the nature of the story and the world, the concepts in the world and the story gave us a kind of path for innovation and invention, right? We're like, how in the future would you make virtual cinema, right?
Exactly, and you are mixing the old techniques. I mean, Muybridge was taking pictures one by ones, and then you're mixing it with a virtual image, and then you are recording it, playing it on the computer. I think it's fascinating because it's everything at the same time, and then everybody knows. I've seen that scene now. It's probably in schools now, but a few people are really realizing hard work. How many months you had to work on that scene?
That was, I mean, at great risk, thanks to the Wachowskis for taking those risks. They were like that. They of course had a backup plan for everything in case we didn't pull it off. But they were also that kind of like free spirited to try this because again, you know, if you're talking about, I mean, back to this, the idea of the God's eye, if you're going to imply that in a simulation, that there's a limitlessness, really, you can, you know, move or do, see in any possible way of your choosing. And so how do you get that point across in traditional cinema? So that we felt like we had to do something that was physically impossible.
Exactly.
And that was the start point. And they were the directors were there from the beginning, right? Like they drew that, right? As they had artist friends draw this impossible stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're like, we know this is impossible. We know we can't shoot that, right? Which is usually, like in the older days of VFX, it was kind of about that. Like, okay, what is something that just doesn't seem possible? Nowadays, it seems like everything has been tried at least, but again, it's all an illusion. In this case, these kinds of the kernels of this tech, and actually what we did on the next movie was volumetric capture, which is totally different. And volumetric capture is essentially just getting source material that's photographic in nature, but it's also spatial. Like you sort of derive both space and texture, and then you've created this computer generated thing, but it feels photographic. And then when we started doing that, we're like, oh my gosh, this is what the future is going to be.
Yeah.
It's like world is source, and now we're going to, you know, create this flawless cinema realistic simulation, which a lot of my friends continue to work on in other ways. And then now you add AI, and now AI learning from this cinematic simulation, and now not even needing as much, not nearly as much source. I mean, you could like one picture now, you literally could feed one picture, have like a character that's in a world, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's insane what's actually just literally the last year, right? As breakthroughs of the last year, unbelievable.
The first time we heard about all this was at KIF. We were privileged to have Marc Petit, who was French and who was heading Unreal Engine. And he mentioned AI as like one of the tools they were using to work. But it was more about machine learning, more about big data than generative AI, because generative AI is relatively new. But we also had NVIDIA. And a few people in the room really understood what we were doing. They were like, what are you asking NVIDIA? And we are only focused on 3D, real-time 3D.
On est à ce moment assez unique où il y a vraiment une révolution technique et économique pour la création du contenu interactif. Maintenant, faire de la vidéo, faire des jeux, faire toutes ces choses-là, là, c'est rendu démocratisé et c'est vraiment très efficace. Donc, il y a une révolution technique et économique, à la fois à travers l'outil gratuit, puis le fait que l'outil est extrêmement efficace pour créer ce contenu. Mais cette 3D, là, quand vous allez lire ça, là, c'était des calculateurs à $1 million, etc. Maintenant, avec un moteur comme Unreal Engine, tout le monde peut faire ça. N'importe quel département marketing peut faire ça. Donc ça, c'est le premier aspect sur les changements autour de la création de contenu. Deuxième chose, c'est qu'on a des nouvelles techniques de diffusion du contenu interactif, en particulier sur le cloud. L'industrie du jeu vidéo est basée sur des devices qui sont particuliers. Oh ben là, la PS5, elle est très différente de la PS4, très différente de la Switch, mais quand on roule tout ça sur le cloud, là, tout ça, ça devient pareil. C'est comme pour la vidéo, là, on est capable de tout streamer depuis le cloud. Donc, on va avoir des barrières qui vont tomber. Les barrières qui sont liées, est-ce que mon téléphone est assez puissant pour ce contenu-là? Toutes ces barrières sont en train de tomber grâce au réseau 5G et grâce au cloud computing. Et finalement, on va avoir des nouvelles façons de consommer le contenu interactif. On peut imaginer un monde où n'importe quelle fenêtre est un écran transparent. Donc, dans l'architecture, dans notre vie quotidienne, on va être capable d'intégrer du contenu interactif. Ces technologies sont vraiment universelles et donc on va pouvoir créer des nouveaux univers et qui vont vivre dans le cloud, qui vont vivre dans nos maisons, à travers nos fenêtres, etc. Donc, c'est un changement. La convergence de toutes ces choses-là, c'est une opportunité. C'est un défi de régulation, c'est un défi de société. Il y a beaucoup d'enjeux par rapport à ces contenus virtuels qui sont pas ancrés dans la réalité, des enjeux économiques, des enjeux politiques. Et c'est une énorme opportunité d'affaires. Donc, ma conclusion, c'est que tout marche pas aujourd'hui, mais on est quand même pas loin là. Il faut vraiment commencer à considérer et à intégrer ça. Et je dirais que la partie visible de toutes ces transformations, ça démarre par la création de contenu dans les moteurs de jeu. Donc, si vous le faites pas déjà, faites-le. Choisissez le bon moteur. Ils sont pas tous pareils. Et développez vos sentiments par rapport à ce nouveau médium, par rapport à ces nouvelles opportunités. Puis, développons collectivement des opinions sur ce que devrait être la gestion de ces mondes virtuels d'un point de vue sociétal et je dirais peut-être même de régulation. Donc,
So this idea of virtual cinematography you had from the very beginning, this idea of using video game engines and AI, do you think it's the future? Do you see a merge of this data world and having a kind of a fantasy studio or a fantasy engine where you can ask for what you want and then it's calculated in real time?
That's the construct, 100%. That's coming. There's no doubt about it. I mean, like, yeah, that is, we're on that path. We'll be like looking at that in the next less than a decade. It'll be half a decade,
yeah.
And we'll be at the construct.
Real-time 3D?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it all has to do with, focusing on it, humans focusing on it. A lot of things are possible much earlier than you actually get to see and experience them. And the reason why you don't get to see and experience them is because corporations have decided there's no market for that yet. We don't have any evidence of that. And so they don't focus on it. But then you have independents who are separate in a way, playing around and showing the possibility. But then the question is, okay, how do you go from the possibility to something commercially viable? And now everybody can do it. But the sort of the components and elements of the construct have been in the works for years now. And I think there's, it's coming pretty quickly.
Because you have been at Magic Leap, you have worked for Lucas, so you had the Star Wars theme park creation, immersive. Then you had work at in what do you call it? In World AI with NPC. So you have had the whole experience. Do you imagine all this converging to Escape AI, so we could have this theater experience with some friends, virtual friends and real friends?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You think it's possible? It's a compute question.
Yeah, we're working on it right now.
You're working on it. So you can imagine that you're on Escape AI and then you engage on Fortnite.
Yeah, I mean, like, just think about it. Like, I mean, like, everyone's different what they want out of entertainment. And some people really, I do, like to just use it to relax and turn off my mind and let my mind be taken by the storyteller.
Escapism.
Escape, yes, is right. But then, especially the newer incoming generation, they may want more. They want to explore, right? They want to do things. They love the world, right? So they're like engaged by the world. So in the 20th century version of this, It's like, I like the world, so I'll see the movie and maybe I'll play a game, or I'll try to find the character or the actor somewhere. So you're like trying to piece together as a fan other ways to experience because you love it so much, right? And the friction between the different ways to potentially experience a world or story or characters is the friction is being reduced at incredible rates right now. Like right now, we haven't really seen yet a frictionless franchise, for example, right? It's not hard at all to imagine that, like, I love this movie. I love the place that this scene took place. I want to now go into the scene, either explore it, I want to play something, or do the thing I saw in the movie, or meet the characters, or follow the characters off the branch, off the sculpture. And that is basically produced, that AI that has been sort of taught and trained on, let's say, anchored components. It could be like, so you've given it a sort of like a Lego kit, what I mean? That is, I hope, human authored, right? That's like crafted by an artist. For example,
any story, anywhere your imagination takes you.
Let me see. We're walking through an enchanted forest.
Character AI is an AI entertainment app where you don't just watch a story happen, you create it.
I'll take the bandit.
I mean, actors are concerned about, and they should be, like things like likeness theft, and all these sorts of things, which I think is totally legitimate. But there's a different version of this where, I'm an actor, I'm going to create a character, and I'm going to get captured creating this character. So like old-timey capture means I put movie camera in front of actor, right? You go forward in time and you have animated movies and games, and like, okay, now same actor is being recorded for voice and motion capture. So now you're capturing them on a couple of other dimensions, right? Go fast forward a little bit more, right? And the character and the actor is now providing, let's say, perhaps a performance, right? Performance that is taking you through emotional, you can
engage the conversation.
Then you can now get engaged. Yes, let's talk about your background. Let's talk about what your motives, hidden and overt, are. Like all these kind of other things. Let's capture your gestures. Let's get mannerisms, right? And then before you know it, the new form capture, right, for neo cinema is this thing that can basically produce a character that can actually be sent in directions that weren't originally conceived of, and perform and do all that stuff, which in my opinion is just a new form of immortality for actors and performers. It's like, oh, I'm going to make a living character now, right? They should not be fearing this. Well, we should get the terms right so that everyone feels comfortable that it's not about stealing your soul, right? But imagine you can make a character that can now go into all these different media types, multimedia, and then have infinite expandability. Some people may not like that. Some people might think that's quite interesting, right? That they can do that and have that kind of impact. I could imagine a character that is made in a particular way with AI powering it, that is still around 100 years from now. That was born from an actor, right? Actor's mind, right?
Yes. A character AI, a sophisticated one, with 3D and emotions and AI to answer and imagine new things. So it's not only for gaming. It's you imagine a world where you can have this experience. It's multimodal.
It's actually media is going to become multimodal in this decade.
And Escape AI is a multimodal platform, potentially.
Well, it's trying to. It's still. Yes, I mean, but when I say multimodal, there'll be a method to extract from one medium into the other, and back and forth, right? Escape wants to present multi-format in the same place, because the modern creator is no longer limited and defined by others that, like, oh, you only make that kind of media, and you're not really making this kind of media, and you have to make only, in the old days, you only had to make that kind of media because very difficult and expensive and go, okay, we're just going to full focus on this one thing. We only make TV shows. That's all we do, right? Yeah. But if you're like an IP creator, you're like, well, I want fans to be able to experience this many ways.
Yeah.
So the tools are making it possible for the modern creator to start really thinking about multi-format, right? Born from their IP. And that Escape wants to be a place that it's just easy to find, the serial fiction version, the art imagery version, the interactive version in one place. We're definitely not done doing that. We're like just beginning that, but that's where we want to go.
Fantastic. And then you have this narrative renaissance. Is it about this new way to tell stories with different tools or different formats? Or is it about, entering or writing or creating with in mind the fact that you can have a movie, a gaming experience, a theme park, whatever around your own? I mean, you imagine the Wachowski or Wachowska, I don't know now are they named, but recreating the Matrix?
Well, it's really going to depend on a case-by-case, person-by-person basis, really, right? Like, it depends. And it's fine. Your choice, whatever you choose is fine. But the Renaissance, whether you call it a Renaissance or a new golden age, right? Mm-hmm. The breakdown of the constraints and gates, the elimination of them, or the reduction of the size of these constraints and gates is already beginning to open the floodgates for original ideas and stories. It really is. Mm-hmm. And people, and access for people anywhere in the world, right? So yeah, like the next master auteur of cinema could very well be in Senegal right now making a Gen AI movie, right? But
absolutely,
this is really what we're about to enter into this phase, right? It's just beginning right now with this small tip of the pioneer group, but it's going to be everybody in 5 years. It's going to be everybody, and we will benefit from this. I mean, two things will happen. We will be awash in a sea of media and confused and not know what's good or bad, and potentially also be awash in a sea of soulless stuff, right? Let's just be frank about it. It's like, I'm not, trying to put out utopia speak here, right? The good to great things that are meaningful to people and compelling to people will need to be sifted out. That's why curation is important. And, I don't see things like auto-generated wallpaper made by robots rising to the top, or maybe they will, maybe they'll have a large audience, but that isn't going to be the only future at all. Like, people are worried about that. They should be. Just like in my country, the future is we have factories built in every square inch of America. Build more factories. We're all going to live in factories now. Screw that. That's not what we want, right? So what we want to see is new voices emerge, empowered, totally new ways of working, but basically stuff getting made now, right? So the Renaissance is about the fact that things can actually start getting made starting soon.
We started as a membership platform 11 years ago, and we're now thinking of Patreon no longer as a membership platform, but as this whole thing. The media, community, and business foundation for the next decade of professional creativity on the internet, organized around the concept of the true follow in an effort to build a better way that art can exist on the web.
And then there's something around the way you finance this, because the big question is, how do you fund? Do you ask people to fund it, like, say, creation economy? Because the fact that the costs are down because of the technology, because of AI.
They're not zero, but they're down.
They're not zero. I mean, they spend 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a job. They need to make money. They need to find a way. Take Senegal. you have to find the tools, you have to have the electricity, you have to do it from your place or from some kind of studio. There's a cost behind this. How do you imagine? Is it funded by the consumers directly because they really support and they love?
I think we'll see a little bit of everything. I definitely 100% believe in creator economy future, 100%. It may or may not work for every single person, but I mean, like, it really has to, you have to do some work, right? You have to find your audience and get your audience behind you. And so there's work there, but your work can be helped by other people trying to promote you and get behind you. Festivals,
community.
There will be, I think it's a different kind of ball game. Like, you know, if in a few years, you know, a movie that looks like $50-100 million movie is now suddenly makeable for $1 million or less dollars, right? And the reason why I still use $1 million is that I do think the best things that are going to come out are still things made by a collaboration of people, people who complete each other. So you're not just talking about only one person, you're talking about a new version of a production studio or a new version of a team. So what might have taken 1,000 or thousands of people, complex movie, might be now doable in tens of people or less. But, you know, you still need to fund this. So it's a different scale. Now, if the financing is now scaled differently, that means that the pool of people who could support you and finance you is much bigger.
Yes.
And you can choose maybe potentially from them, right? So now you may have much more leverage. And if you also make the effort to try to jumpstart your pilot or your IP, you begin to get fans, then you're actually going into
fan base.
You're going into that with more leverage, right? So like the more you can do as a creator to try to like entrepreneurially get something started, the more you have as leverage when it comes to getting the funds you will need, you know, to keep it going or expand it. So there's all different ways, and I think that I think creator economy is important. I think new types of financing and funding partners is absolutely a thing. You definitely see people around trying to you know, use crowdfunding.
Yes, crowdfunding.
I believe in all of that sort of stuff.
And for Escape AI, you funded it personally or with a group of friends. And
private investors, right? Private investors, yeah.
And you imagine tomorrow that you will go to the finance market or to venture capitalists, because they will ask you for the visibility.
I mean, the VCs are tough. They're like, I mean, they need to see a lot of numbers. They want to see a lot of numbers. I particularly, I mean, I'm open-minded to any kind of investor, really.
If there are French people who are watching this show and I want to invest,
100%.
100%.
I would love nothing more than to have like the number one thing that matters to me is that people already believe and understand, they have an instinct, right, for where this might be going, right? The reason why private investors are interesting are because you will find individuals that have also vision, you know, and some confidence, instinct on it. And those are the partners you really want to have, right? You want to have people that are believers. But then the other kinds of interesting partners, you know, separate from VCs, are strategic technology type of companies that also can see, they're looking, right? And they want to, you know, what's the sense of spending all this money making tools that don't end up inside of a product that gets to an end user, you know, around the globe? I mean, like, so then there's a lot of other kinds of strategic kinds of companies that need to do more to manifest the outcome than just make the tool and hope for the best, right? And I think that there's interest there in Escape. I think we have like a lot of interest in Escape, but we do love private investors. And, you know, if you're a VC, I mean, if you're a VC with vision, sure, we were interested in that. But, you know, I actually like to turn it around on the other way and say, like, sure, I'd love to try out for you and try to explain why this is going to work. And I will. but I hope that you're also bringing to the conversation an understanding of where things seem to be going. Like some VCs absolutely get it, and a lot of them don't.
Okay.
We were halfway home when the company woke us up. There was a signal coming from some shitty planet we were passing by. A strange signal. The captain volunteered to go down. So did the scaredy cat. The pig was reluctant, but the doc reminded him he didn't have a choice. The boys were worried about their share of the haul, but I explained they'd get what's coming to them. Ugh. It was just like flying into Newark, New Jersey.
Initiating landing sequence in 3, 2, 1.
I don't know why the company was so interested in this rock. I could see on the monitor, it was a graveyard. Then I figured it out. It probably had something to do with this giant alien ship. I had a bad feeling about this. The rest of the crew didn't share my concerns, even though all signs pointed to trouble. Like, what the hell was that thing? Some kind of god? The computer said the temperature was rising fast. Wonder what the expiration date was on these eggs. I can't even imagine what it smelled like. The pig must have loved it, though. In hindsight, the doc was a bit excited about this situation. Cutting this thing off his face didn't seem like a great idea, but time was running out.
And then it's not only a narrative renaissance, it's also a, I wouldn't say an industrial renaissance, but you are saying that the way we tell the stories, the way we shoot, the way we think, we imagine, is completely transformed.
It could be. It really could be. I mean, if you think about the way a series is made right now, you know, if it's a great series, you have great writers. They try to think it out across 1, 2, 3 seasons, 4. It's always tricky. You get into that 3rd season, then you're trying to get up to 4 or 5, and you're like, oh, you're going to get lost in the woods around season 3, right? And then like, oh no, we don't know where to go, right? And so that is also a separation between good and great and knowing when to stop. You know what I mean? But you could imagine, right, where the writers do understand where engagement is happening better than they do today. And there could definitely be like a relationship with the viewer fan that is different than any we've had up to this date, you know. And I'm not saying that like the fans are telling the storyteller where to take the story, but they certainly should and could influence it, take it down. And there is even, it's plausible to imagine that, like, let's say I love this series, but I love this character, and now I want to go in this totally different direction. I'd love to follow this character down some other
spin-off of the series.
You could imagine that, like, once the foundation of the rules of the world, the characters, you could imagine that you could start doing branches.
Actually, it happened in pop music. People were following the Beatles. Then some of them decided that Paul McCartney was because they split. But you imagine, let's say, in music, you have many of these type of.
But imagine that generative AI allows the master storyteller to deliberately allow their series to branch in many directions once they've laid out their rule set, right? Good. Once they've, and then it's like, okay, now maybe the
it's the Mandalorian. Mandalorian comes from Star Wars, and he's a kind of lonesome cowboy, but from the Star Wars saga, and he's having his own path. So it's
Star Wars. I worked for Lucasfilm for 5 years. I worked with the story group, right? So when we were working with them, working with them, I was able to see, I saw this with Matrix, like, okay, we're going to tell stories of characters in places. And imagine just you have this whole matrix of like places, people, destinations and time, right?
Yeah.
And you could really like just chart out Star Wars stories, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to tell it in the beginning, middle, or end. We're going to use this characters. We're going to cut across these different media types. And if you could think that way, you could potentially open up an infinite amount of branching. But again, it's about the authorship in the start, right? Like, you know, and then like see where it wanders. I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of media that will start to be made like this, and it'll be done good and bad, but it's a completely new opportunity for a world builder storyteller to think about.
Fantastic. You gave us a lot of hope and a lot of ideas, and thank you for your time. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for everything we shared, because it's an imagination, but it's also an action. You have spent your career working with fantastic people and also opening doors. So I think Escape AI will become one of my favorite destinations.
Thank you. I hope so.
Thank you. Now, really, I've seen a lot of things in my career, but this one is the kind of thing you say, oh, I should have that idea. This is great because it's
you know, it's a good idea when you step back from it, you go, oh, that's simple. Actually, you can understand the idea, right? And then you know it's a pretty good idea, right? It's like, oh, okay, we're going to create something that is really attractive to the mainstream. Maybe it's even more. It's attractive to the mainstream, but it's a container full of innovation. Right.
Absolutely.
And it's like, oh, both. That's the idea. It feels mainstream, but it's actually all innovation.
Fantastic. So good luck to Escape AI.
Thank you.
And congratulations. And to the team.
If you're over there.
Thank you.
Bye. Tell everybody I said hello.